Good morning, everyone. My name is Rich Benevento and want to thank you all for being here. I'm the Region 1 Director for APWA and glad you could all make it this morning. Great topic, electrification of municipal public works fleets and equipment. We have a great panel for you today. Just a couple of quick things I just wanted to just mention, and hopefully everybody is celebrating. This week is, of course, National Public Works Week, a time to celebrate the hard work and dedication of the public work community. National Public Works Week is an opportunity to promote your departments. Hopefully you're doing that. Recognize your staff, engage with the community, and raise awareness of the importance of public works in our communities and in our lives. So hopefully you have activities going on in your community to recognize the public works community this week and always, really. Yesterday was our National Public Works, National Public Works Week luncheon. Hopefully some of you made it. If you didn't, it was a great time. One of the things we do at the National Public Works Week luncheon is we celebrate our member of the year. Without trying to embarrass Donna, I did want to recognize this morning that we have a good group on the call today, but did want to recognize Donna as the New England Chapter Member of the Year. So congratulations, Donna. Many of you probably know Donna. If you don't, Donna, for over 20 years, has been the director of Connecticut's LTAP, Connecticut's Local Technical Assistance Program at UConn, where her primary responsibilities have been really the transfer of knowledge and best practices. You're ready for over 3,000 municipal public works employees each year. So she has really been a champion of education to our public works community and our APWA membership. So I just wanted to acknowledge that today and congratulate Donna for some great work. She's been recognized in the past. In 2017, she was APWA's Donald C. Stone Award winner for excellence in education. So we're so very thrilled to have Donna as part of our APWA family in New England and as part of our New England Chapter Connects program, our virtual learning series. So with that, and right before I get to introduce Donna and tell her to take it away, just one quick note. The New England Chapter Summer Conference is coming up. Would encourage you to go to the website if you haven't registered for that. We have some great technical programs, again, with the help from Donna as our co-chair of our education committee. So if you haven't registered yet, please be sure to do so. That's June 21st to the 23rd. So hopefully you can do that. So with that, Donna, take it away. And again, congratulations on a well-deserved honor.
Thank you so much, Rich. Thank you for not embarrassing me too much, but it was a wonderful surprise, and I'm very honored. Thanks to the chapter for that recognition. It was very, very sweet. Made my week. Thank you very much. Okay, to save me any further embarrassment, we're going to dive right into the topic of electrification. That's why we're all here. So first, though, I want to welcome you all as the co-chair of our education committee. Dave Field is my partner in crime and my other co-chair. We're delighted to have you here today. This is a very hot topic, a timely topic. As cities and towns look ahead at developing their long-term net zero visions, addressing mandates that are coming toward them, the topic of electrification kept rising to the top of our list of suggested areas to address. So we're very happy that we can talk about this today. First, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsors of APWA. Their incredible support allows us to do so much of this good work. So we always want to take an opportunity to thank them very much for their support throughout the year. Now I'm delighted to take first though, I'm so excited to introduce the panel. I just forgot about our upcoming sessions. So we have some great sessions coming up. We're taking a little bit of a break over the summer so that you can use all of our recorded sessions for lunch and learns with your team. We really encourage you to do that. But then come right back to us in September because we've got grant writing, how to get started in that. So much funding coming to agencies now. It's really important for you to be able to successfully write grants. So we have a fantastic colleague of ours from Ohio coming to join us for this session. It's going to be fantastic. You definitely don't want to miss it. And then also look at the workforce challenges you're facing right now. We have Mary Lee from New Hampshire. In October, will be working with us on a workforce planning session. We're really listening to your feedback on what you want to hear in these, and I'm very excited that we're able to put together these timely topics for you. And we're going to surprise you in November, so keep an eye out. We don't want to have you plan out the whole year. We want some surprises. So we look forward to giving you something exciting to wrap up the year. We're really excited that this group's been able to do such good work with this. So, and also you'll see at the end that Regina's going to put up a slide with a QR code. Don't forget to give us feedback on these. And also, I think this is just the start of the conversation about electrification. So let us know in the evaluation what you want to see talked about next. What are the areas that you want us to research and explore for you on this? Because I feel like this is part one of a potential series of opportunities to talk about this really broad, really important topic. So today, I could not be more thankful and excited to work with the group that we have on the panel. So I'm going to introduce you to them and then give them a chance to talk to us. First, we have Alex Slatke. Alec is the Managing Director of Public and Government Affairs for AAA Northeast. We work with AAA Northeast on so many different topics, and we're excited that they've been keeping an eye on this one for us. The next, we have Celia Kosinski, who's a Policy Manager for the Electrification Coalition. We have David Pinsino, the Director of Public Works from Lexington, and Zach Blodgett, who's the Deputy Director and Engineer for the City of Montpelier, Vermont. So, Alec, as I mentioned, AAA Northeast and AAA nationally keep a really close eye on things that are happening in many areas of transportation. And we're very grateful that you've been keeping a very close eye on electrification. So I thought I would open by asking you to kind of give us the current kind of state of practice, what you're seeing, what we should be looking for in this area, and maybe kick us off with that kind of a bird's eye view from AAA.
Sure. Thanks, Donna, and thanks for having me. And as you said, my name's Alec, and I'm with AAA Northeast. So one of the local AAA affiliates. We cover parts of Connecticut, all of Massachusetts, all of Rhode Island, and just Salem, New Hampshire, due to kind of odd history of AAA and bureaucracy that I could, very much bore you with at a later date. But we work closely with all the other AAA affiliates. So if you have questions or want to work with one of the AAAs, up in northern New England, I'm happy to connect you to them. But AAA comes at electric vehicles from I would say 3 different standpoints. One is we have a fleet, and we're subject to all the same rules. Well, maybe not municipal rules, but we're subject to the same market forces and federal regulations that you all are, state regulations in many cases. So, we're looking at trying to move towards electrification of our fleet. We're also a roadside assistance provider, and we know as more and more vehicles are electric on the road, we've got to be able to service those vehicles. And we do right now, right? Certainly if you get a flat tire and you're an EV, if you're locked out of your car, it's the same exact process. What we are piloting around the country is trying to see how mobile charging will work. So we've got, in 25 cities around the country, we've got mobile EV charging trucks if you run out of charge on the side of the road. So we're trying to engage in that space. And I think the third place that we come at this from is the consumer education space. And I think that's where myself and the public affairs team, that's where I pay a lot of attention to, and what are the general EV trends? How can we make sure our consumers have the best information they need to think about whether or not they should go electric? And the bottom line is that the predictions for the adoption rates of EVs, they keep accelerating. Just from a few years ago, the estimates have gone way up, and a lot of the estimates project that by 2030, a majority of new cars that are sold, at least from a light duty perspective, are going to be electric. And the exact estimates certainly vary from consultant to consultant, from researcher to researcher, but the general trend is they're all accelerating, they're all increasing. And according to the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, which is kind of an industry trade group, EVs were about 7% of new light-duty vehicle sales last year, which is up from a little over 4% in 2021, a little over 2% in 2020. So just in 2 years, the percentage tripled basically of EVs, and even within last year, sales accelerated. I think the market share was about 8.5% in Q4, 10% in December. So it's coming fast and furious. Where 10 years ago, if you found out your neighbor bought an EV, it might raise a little bit of eyebrows. Now not really. And no doubt those numbers are propped up by a few states, particularly California, which has a 20% market share for electric vehicles, including both battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids. But most of New England actually is in the top half of the market. Massachusetts a bit over 8%, Connecticut and Vermont a little over 7%, Rhode Island a bit over 5%, Maine a bit under, and then New Hampshire is just a bit under 4%. So we're generally ahead of most other states in the country, but certainly we're behind our peers in Europe, and I think that's something that we try to let our consumers know, our members know, is that this isn't an impossible pipe dream. It's certainly it might seem like one to many folks, but the European Union is only allowing EVs or cars that run on clean fuels by 2035. We know Scandinavia is certainly way ahead. Norway's looking, they have policies for 2025, and then Iceland and Sweden and Ireland for 2030. Saying you're only going to be able to have electric vehicles at that point. So, or only be able to buy electric vehicles at that point. And we know some states in our area are looking at similar regulations, adopting California's regulations that say by 2035, you can't buy a new light duty electric, a gas powered vehicle. They're only electric at that point. So, this can be done. When you look at Scandinavia and their EV adoption rates, they're super high, much higher than really anywhere in the US. So yeah, the cold weather certainly is a concern for many folks, and it's a legitimate one, because it does reduce your range, but it's more than feasible. So I guess, what are the three roadblocks left for EVs? And there's certainly not only three, and there's three big ones. I think it's charging, I think it's affordability, and it's consumer acceptance. And we know of some a little over 3,000 counties in the US, a majority had 5 or fewer public chargers installed, and almost 40% had 0 at the end of last year. Most of those are not in our area. They're more toward the middle of the country, more rural areas. But certainly there's a lot of the country that it doesn't have the infrastructure. And I think that's acknowledged by most folks, that we need to do a lot more to get public charging infrastructure ready. So the Biden administration, they want to have 500,000 EV chargers. At the end of 2022, there were about 136,000 charging ports, about 53,000 locations. So we're definitely on the way up in terms of building out that charging infrastructure. I think a lot of that is coming from the grant programs. Certainly, I think you can hear about much more about that from my colleague at the Electrification Coalition. But I think that's a big reason for it. And there's also new standards for public charging that are designed to be more kind of consumer friendly, to say, hey, if you're going to use federal dollars to build chargers, they've got to be working the large majority of the time. 97% of the time is what they're said. You got to be able to pay using a universal app, no matter which company can install the charging station. You've got to have price transparency, and you've got to have 24/7 operation when you're on alternative fuel corridors, or at least as long as the shopping center stays open. You've got to have at least 4 ports per charging station. So I think there are lots of rules that are trying to make EV charging more consumer friendly. And I think, when I say consumers, certainly that applies to average consumers, but that also applies to all the folks on this call who, in this case, are acting as consumers of either gas-powered or electric vehicles. And you've got to make a choice, and you've got to figure out what works best for your operations. And I think that certainly, private charging or municipal charging is going to be a big part of that. But you also want to know, hey, if you're out on the road and you're really low and you might be out of town, that's something that you want to be able to make use of. I think affordability is the second issue, and I'll just be very brief. I mean, we know that new EVs are more expensive than new internal combustion engine vehicles. There are tax credits that are available to consumers who are buying electric vehicles that make up that difference. And I think a lot of that difference ultimately is made up in the long run, when you're saving on fuel, you're saving on maintenance, but you've got to be able to make that initial outlay. And that's certainly not something that every consumer can do. It's not something that every municipality is able to afford to do. So that's certainly, an issue that I think is going to become less of one as time goes on, as I think more EVs come to market, and there's more regulations. Certainly, I think that gap is going to be narrowed, even just from the initial purchase price. And I think consumer acceptance is probably the last big issue. And I think, we've seen polls that say, about a quarter of Americans say for a AAA survey, they're going to get, they're planning to get an EV for their next car. And there are a lot of similar surveys out there that say I would say that's a pretty good chunk of folks that are looking at EVs for their next car. So I think that number is going to continue to increase. But there are certainly a lot of folks out there that are very set on saying, I am not going to give up my gas car. I am not ever planning on buying an electric vehicle. And the bottom line is, in 20 years, they might not have a choice, whether it's regulation or their hand is kind of forced by the market and saying, actually, electric vehicles are much cheaper. But there is that initial skepticism that we've got to overcome to say, hey, we're not here to tell you you've got to buy an electric vehicle today, but if you're in the market and you're not at least considering it, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. But I would caution there are certainly, it can become a very politicized topic. So when you're doing any public messaging about this, it would definitely behoove you to be careful about how you do it. To take into account the folks in your communities that really want EVs, and then the folks that in your communities that really do not want EVs, and to message appropriately. So happy to chat more about any of that, but want to turn it over to the rest of the panel. Well, I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say than that.
That's great. Thanks, Alec. It's nice to know where New England is, first of all, in this, and what we should see coming. One of our primary goals when we were developing this session was to try to bring resources to our government agencies, our local agencies, about what is available to them, what funding has been a big question. If I'm moving forward in some of these programs, what funding is available to me, what incentives are available to me, what partnerships are available to me. Those have been kind of the rising topics. And so we were so delighted to meet Celia and learn about the Electrification Coalition, which is developing so many resources for government agencies. I saw your government playbook, which we will be sharing in our resource links. And I'm delighted that you're with us today to talk about some of these areas. I will tell the group two things I would encourage. One, at the end, Regina is going to be putting in a whole list of resources that we've developed. Thank you very much to the panelists for providing this information. They're very helpful. So I would encourage you to take those. We put it into a Word doc so you can save it for whenever you need it. But there are a lot of links to funding and this government playbook and all types of different resources that we put together that we'll continue to try to provide down the road. But I encourage you to take that away from the session today. And also, if you have questions as the panelists are speaking, please put them in the chat. And I promise that we will get to them at some point. I really do encourage you to think about what questions you have that you want to try to make sure that these panelists, while we have them, can answer for you. So I'm going to turn it over to Celia, who's going to talk about the wonderful coalition that they've developed on this topic.
Thanks, Donna, and thanks for having me on today to speak to some of these opportunities. The Electrification Coalition is a national nonprofit organization. We're working to advance policies and actions on the state, local, and federal level to facilitate the widespread adoption of EVs. And we do that in order to reduce our economic and national security risks associated with foreign oil sources. So we have created a number of successful EV adoption programs. One of those is the Climate Mayors Purchasing Collaborative, where we've helped over 250 public fleets transition to electric. And help procure infrastructure as well. We've also developed a number of comprehensive transportation electrification roadmaps. We've done the city of Boston, Raleigh, North Carolina, DC, and also most recently the US Virgin Islands. And this really includes a focus on the equitable access to EVs, infrastructure, cost savings, and accelerating the adoption. So like Donna said, I'm just going to review some of our resources that might be relevant to you, and then dive a little bit more into some of the federal funding opportunities that are currently available through some of this kind of unprecedented amount of EV opportunities right now. So I just want to highlight as well some of the recent work that we've done in New England. So through the Climate Mayors Purchasing Collaborative, this process was started to really streamline the procurement of EVs and offering a turnkey mechanism that can really satisfy some of those municipal bid requirements that municipal fleets do have. And in New England alone, we have worked with 3 universities, 16 cities, and 1 county to help do this. And through this work, we've actually created a tool to help fleets make these data-driven decisions to transition to electric. So the first I'll mention is the Dashboard for Rapid Vehicle Electrification, also known as the DRIVE tool. Here at the EC, we do really love our acronyms, and we love to tie that into anything related to vehicles. So that's one of our fun acronyms, the DRIVE tool. So it is a total cost of ownership tool which provides an analysis for light, medium, and heavy duty fleet vehicles. And this allows the users to highlight the savings of by EV model through a side-by-side comparison to the conventional vehicle. And that uses a range of application with real VIN data from any public or private fleet, and really helps to look at the overall savings of the lifetime of the vehicle. And I think it was mentioned that, you know, the lifetime of the total cost of ownership of an EV is much lower than that of an ICE comparison. And this is a free tool, and I know that we will be sharing it after. So please, feel free to get in touch regarding this tool. We have helped a number of fleets work through some of the data and really able to kind of help bring it to their upper management to say, hey, look at the savings we can make here with transitioning to EVs. And maybe that's not the near term exactly, but that could be a long-term perspective as well. And then as a complement to that tool, we also created the State Plug-in Adoption Resource Kit, another fun acronym, also known as SPARK. And that is an online database of resources and a step-by-step guide to help fleet managers and other government officials to incorporate EVs into their fleets. And this one was really kind of a one-stop shop to help anyone who's in at any step in the state fleet electrification process, if you're at step 1 or if you're at step 10. So really kind of helping those figure out what other municipalities are doing, what other states are doing, and really being that guiding source. And as Donna mentioned, we did just release our local government playbook. This resource was really intended to serve as a tool for cities and counties and towns to support the deployment of EV infrastructure and identify approaches to prepare these local governments as we're seeing some of these federal investments coming through. And we really took this playbook and said, okay, what have we learned from working with cities, and how can we incorporate this into a really helpful resource for those that are really starting off in this process, and for addressing all of this really historical funding that's coming through. And some of the topics within this playbook include, near-term and long-term policy recommendations, state and regional planning, stakeholder engagement, as we've seen, as a very important piece, in addition to community engagement and site planning. And then I think I will also just highlight some of the federal resources as well, not specific to the Electrification Coalition, but As a part of kind of the unprecedented amount of transportation electrification funding that has come through on the federal level, there was a joint office created. So the joint office of the Department of Energy and Department of Transportation have come together to create a joint office, and they've created a number of resources to help folks within just to understand these federal funding opportunities. And the federal USDOT did create a number of toolkits, both for rural and urban electric mobility, which I know will be included. And this is really another resource to help communities scope, plan, and identify ways to implement charging infrastructure. So now I'll just highlight a couple of the federal funding opportunities that are relevant to some of the municipalities and ways in which you can really take advantage of some of this funding. So as many know, there were two very large bills that have come out in the last couple years, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or also known as IIJA, or the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and also the Inflation Reduction Act. So as part of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, one of the very relevant pieces of the program is the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant Program. So this currently opened, this opened a couple months ago. This is a $2.5 billion program over 5 years. And this includes a community charging program and a corridor charging program. And this was really, this was put forth to really help deploy more EV charging stations throughout both urban and rural communities, and, with a particular emphasis on some of those underserved areas. So this was a complement to the NEVI funds, so the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Grant Program, which provides $5 billion to deploy 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations across the country. So this program, CFI, is also here to help complement some of that as well. So this particular program is only for public entities. Private entities are not eligible, but the first tranche of this funding is about $700 million, and the first deadline for this is actually June 13th. So we at the EC have been working directly with some public entities that are eligible to help them through this application process and providing that technical support. And I do just want to say, if anyone is interested in learning more about this program or working with us on that, please do get in touch. I think my email will probably be, I can either put it in the chat or it will be sent out afterwards, but we're really happy to help. As we're seeing, this is just such a historical moment for charging infrastructure, and the opportunity for some of these public entities to really take advantage of this and put some charging infrastructure into the ground. And the other kind of piece I'll mention as well, through the Inflation Reduction Act. So this also had a large amount of money going towards transportation electrification. Most notably, we are seeing the EV provisions. So there's a number of tax credits that are included in that. So new, used, and commercial EVs that can be taken advantage from the consumer perspective. So we're looking at anything from $7,500 to $2,500, and which can be a really big benefit to those that are trying to buy an EV. I mean, I think, it was mentioned, like affordability is such an issue right now. And a lot of these tax credits are going to be so helpful just to kind of make them even more affordable for the average buyer. So yeah, and I think that just kind of tying into all of that, the federal government, this is a very new space for them to be kind of putting money into this industry, and they're kind of working through some of the issues they're seeing, providing feedback from the cities, saying, we need to understand more about how to apply, or what are the resources, where can we get more information on this, and here at the EC, we've been seeing that, and we've been really trying to take that on in terms of technical advisement. So I really do encourage anyone who has any further questions about some of these federal funding opportunities that specifically relate to municipalities to please get in touch, because we understand that this is a very new area to a lot of entities. It is changing very fast. And there are quick deadlines, so I'm kind of just happy to help going forward. And I also just look forward to the discussion, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Celia, first for developing all these great resources and continuing to be a resource as local agencies begin to navigate through this complex issue. As I mentioned earlier, when I opened the session, there are some agencies that are developing long-term strategies and they're working toward them. Some agencies are having to react as mandates come to them and start to implement programs to address those new requirements in their town. Well, we wanted to try to bring you a little bit of both of those perspectives. So Regina, I'm going to have you open up Dave's presentation, and Dave is going to be the first to talk about a mandate that he actually is successfully addressing it. So, in Lexington,
Yeah, I can do
Massachusetts.
that. Thanks, Donna. Just while we're waiting for the slides, just to touch on what Alec and Celia mentioned, the town also passed or adopted a fleet policy to really look at electric vehicles first. So at this budget process, we brought forward an electric sweeper and an electric trash compactor vehicle. Both of them were double the price of the gas models. So the town elected not to pursue them at this time. We also need about $200,000 worth of electrical work at our building in order to accommodate those. So that they did approve. We're gonna pursue that. But the vehicles we'll take those up again when their cycle comes around. But the town just wasn't ready to make those purchases at this time. So I can relate to that, but that is a mandate that they've got throughout, that we look at electric first. So what I'm going to talk about is our noise bylaw in town. So shift gears a little bit and really talk about the landscape end, where electric equipment comes into play. Coming out of COVID or during COVID, with everybody at home, the backpack blowers became an issue for a lot of residents who are now trying to work at home or were at home. So they brought their concerns to our noise committee, who then set up, a working group, ourselves, landscapers, and other concerned residents in town. And we thought we had a pretty workable solution to bring to town meeting. One is, as you can see here, was setting hours of use. That was something that people were very in tune with. So the changes in the bylaw set landscape maintenance work, and that includes public works unless there's an emergency. Weekdays 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Then we have the weekends and holidays work. They also, and that's more for homeowners, they also restricted landscapers, so there's no Sunday or holiday work under this bylaw. Again, unless there's some kind of an emergency. And you can find this information at the link that's there, and I think that'll be shared as well in the chat. So if we just go to the next slide, Regina. So on town meeting floor, we had come up with an article that would do a seasonal ban for the gas-powered backpack blowers. Our department and the landscapers, we're okay with that because, many of us acknowledge, during the middle of the summer, one, grass blade on the lawn, you don't need a big, heavy gas-powered backpack blower to deal with that. So we had buy-in from the landscape community, from a good number of the residents, from the town staff, but on town meeting floor, they decided to overturn that, and they made a change as they can, and they passed a total ban on the backpack blowers. So the seasonal is in effect right now, but as of, and you can see the dates there, March 15th, 2025, commercial landscapers, and that includes DPW, can no longer use gas-powered leaf blowers for any cleanups, whether it's spring or fall or throughout the season. What they did is, or the only adjustment they made is they allowed properties that were an acre or more to be exempt from that. So it helps from a public works standpoint. It helps a little bit, but we don't typically do leaf cleanup at our large field areas. They're wide open. The leaves don't collect. We're not doing a lot of that at our larger areas. It will help in a couple of the larger parks, but all of our smaller properties, town hall, library, pocket parks, we are going to be forced to do leaf collection a different way in the spring and the fall, come 2025, because we cannot use gas-powered blowers or leaf equipment for those tasks. The town meeting, they set up, well, you know, we'll hit the landscapers and public works, but we'll give the residents an extra year to adjust to that. So they're going to be in effect March 15th of 2026. And then the entire town will not be able to use gas leaf blowers again, unless it's on a property that's an acre or more. So if you go to the next one, Regina. So right now we're operating on the seasonal restriction, which is, for at least for now, important for us. We have Patriots Day in April. Coming out of the winter, there's a lot of debris to clean up. We were able to use that gas-powered equipment, you know, we're up until this coming weekend. And then it begins again in the fall, and then the landscapers are on this as well. This was the proposal that we brought forward to town meeting, that we had buy-in, that town meeting changed. So it went to that full out ban, and we were in favor of doing this seasonal ban, which I think would have worked fairly well for us, but that's not what got passed. I should note the landscapers did get signatures and they put a referendum. So this was passed at our fall town meeting in 2021. In spring of 2022, the landscapers got signatures. They brought a referendum to the town, and the referendum actually upheld the changes that they made to the bylaw. So we are pursuing with the full ban come 2025. So if you go to the next one, Regina. So coupled with that, they tied in a penalty. And right now, they're looking at both operator and homeowner. The police is still kind of sorting out because we're not going to be the enforcing agency. It'll go through our police department. So, you know, the take is going to be more of an education for the first few complaints that they get, and then they're going to have to start enforcing the bylaw. And again, this will begin in 2025, and in the summer period where you're not supposed to use the gas-powered equipment for now when it comes to the blowers. So they really harped on the blowers, which somebody who has researched a lot of this electric equipment like I have and our department has, that's probably the weakest piece of equipment as far as matching the gas-powered for performance that's out there, or at least that we have found. And then I'll get into where we have been able to make some strides with electric equipment in our grounds operation that we have found a benefit to, and I think have been very well received. So if you go to the next one, Regina. So I'll just run through a couple of things. You know, we use the electric utility carts. Those are handy when you're out at larger sites to go back and forth, and those are fully electric. So we did away with the gas-powered units there, and we have a couple of those. Over the fall, we purchased a drive-on electric paint machine. So rather than have gas or have to have fuel to move this around, this is a fully electric cart, and we can go out and do pretty much a 6-hour workday of painting fields with this equipment. So it allows us a lot of flexibility. And again, this is electric that we were able to switch over to and has made a difference for our operation. If you go to the next one. So again, in the summer, we have the handheld electric blowers, which you see on the left. You know, and those are fine for, you know, quick walkway cleanup. Or like I said, just, you know, minimal leaf or grass debris. We're testing out a number of the backpack models right now. We actually switched our blowers and our trimmers. So what I would urge is you get demos from different companies, look at the equipment, what you think is going to be best suited to you, battery life, things like that. We don't have I know some communities have a portable charging trailer that they bring around to the different sites. We just went for extra batteries and we set up a charging area in our shop. So we made space, made sure we had the right power, and we have extra batteries that charge so the crews can swap them in and out. Typically when they come back for lunch, they'll go ahead and pop a new battery in and be good to go for the rest of the day. One thing that we did do is we did, if you just go back for 1 second, Regina, we did eliminate all of our gas-powered string trimmers. And this did actually a couple of things, not only the noise and going to electric, but we found this was a much healthier option for our staff. We don't have to carry the 2-cycle fuel around. They don't have to mix it. They don't have to have it available. There's no fumes that are coming from the, from that engine. They're much easier to start. So you're not having that pull motion all the time. They're a little bit lighter weight, our staff has found. And we did go from one model to a different model with vendors, just because we keep demoing and finding the best ways for our staff to have the equipment to use. But now we're on all electric string trimmers for our entire grounds operation. So that's all of our parks, play fields, and cemetery areas. So we're using the electric string trimmers, and staff has had a great benefit, plus the noise component as well. So now you can go to the next one, Regina. So we do have a couple of the electric push mowers that have worked out very well. And we do, and I should back up, most of that smaller equipment, we were fortunate. We had a grant from Eversource. That's our local electric company in town. It was just a grant to use on sustainable initiatives. So we earmarked it for this equipment. So we were able to outfit our grounds division with the smaller equipment. Based on that, we were able to get into our capital equipment and the mower that you see on the right. So those are in that $50,000 to $60,000 range. When it came time to replace a similar gas unit, we replaced it with the electric. So we're able to put those in our capital budget, and it got supported through the town. And these we use in our downtown area. So our downtown corridor, we're kind of earmarking as a quiet zone. The only gas-powered mowing equipment we use is the large area mowers, the 11-foot mowers, and we use those in a couple of spots. Because again, the technology is not there on those large area mowers for electric yet. So we're working with a number of different vendors to, see what they can come up with in that process. But for the, for those smaller, anywhere from 36 to 54 to 60-inch mowers, we're now swapping over to electric. So we are making strides in doing that. And these, we were more proactive in establishing that this is a change that we wanted to make. Whereas the noise bylaw, that even with our input and trying to be out ahead of it, that came down as a mandate that now we have to live with. So we'll be demoing backpack blowers aplenty over the next, year or so, and see what we can come up with so that we're ready to go for spring of 2025. And I think that's it. And there's my contact info. If you need, I'd be happy to talk about our program and how we've been able to maneuver through some of this. So with that, Donna, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dave. I just have two questions that are on my mind now as I listen to that
Sure.
great information. One of them is, as you work with your colleagues in APWA and in the rest of your colleagues in Massachusetts, are you seeing more and more towns having these kind of mandates? Are you kind of unique in Mass, or are you seeing this? I know a few in Connecticut are having these kinds of things. Are you seeing it more and more?
And we're seeing it more and more that they're at least bringing it forward and leaving it up to their community to decide. So I know some of our neighboring communities already have these mandates that are in place. And I think you're going to see it a lot more. I think as more people are doing the work from home and, and are just around more, they're more cognizant of that. And it's really the noise aspect that they're targeting. So yes, we do see it as growing. This is just the beginning of it.
I think as I think about that, the opportunity could be that as almost like a collaborative of folks that purchase to do a little bit of feedback to these vendors to say, you have to make units that are as effective. We cannot have, these things have to become more effective for us to use them, to be able to have our operations be able to sustain them. There's a thought about a potential group coming together to give that feedback to those vendors where you're saying this isn't working as well as it did. It has to, for us to be able to move forward.
Yeah, and we're trying to work with the state, at least in Massachusetts, as
Great.
far as the purchasing. So trying to see if, we can get state contracts for electric equipment and, have those prices. What we found is with this type of equipment, the prices are fairly similar. So not like when you get to the vehicles where we found there's a discrepancy right now in pricing. So these have been a little bit easier to move, but if you're changing out a whole, grounds fleet, that's a lot to take on. So we are trying to work with them, see what we can come up with and take it from there.
Well, we can certainly research this, but are the Eversource grants something still available, do you think? Are you seeing those advertised still, or was that kind of a past?
Well, so this was one that was specific to Lexington.
Oh, okay.
Work
Gotcha.
that they had been doing in town, and then they offered this grant to us for sustainable practices. So it wasn't specifically earmarked for this equipment. We made it that way.
That's great.
So whether they'll have available funding for us moving
Right.
forward, I'm not sure. But right now the town is bought into the program that we have for the grounds equipment. So they are supporting that in the budget as we move forward.
Great. Because the funding of this seems to be what some of the towns are facing in terms of challenges. So good to know that there's some options available, or you've taken advantage of them, or can modify programs to meet these needs. Thank you, Dave.
Yes.
Appreciate it. So I'm now going to turn it over to Zach. Montpelier has a long-term strategy to reach net zero, and I'd love to hear how they're doing with that and what their challenges and opportunities have been. So Zach, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. I really appreciate being on this panel today. My experience, our town's experience, is very similar to Dave's. We have started making that slow transition to the smaller equipment. But first, to give you a background of where we're at, in 2010, Montpelier created an energy and advisory committee, and that was specifically to look at how to get to our net zero initiatives. In 2014, they took one step further. They brought the city council actually adopted a net zero resolution, which stated that we have goals to be the first capital city in the U.S. to eliminate fossil use by completely converting to 100% renewable energy. By 2030, they want 100% of municipal government operations to be either renewable or offset. And then by 2050, eliminate fossil fuel use 100% with all energy being met renewably. So in 2022, DPW advertised for their first two vehicles. When we did our bid, we opened the bid out for gas, hybrid, or electric. We weren't really sure, coming out of COVID and long lead times with equipment purchasing, that even if we were to get into a hybrid, that it would meet our, kind of our timeline and demands for the work that we need. So in 2022, when we did that bid, that was the first time that we had all three options on there. And surprisingly, we actually, or maybe not surprisingly, we didn't receive a single hybrid or gas bid or electric bid. They were only gas from all of our vendors. So with those two pieces of equipment, we ended up purchasing gas options. Now in 2023, this time when we're bidding, we're actually cutting out the gas option. So we're going to be exclusively asking for either hybrid or electric vehicles. So we will see how that transpires and whether we're still able to get good bids. One thing that I have noticed is that your current vendors that you've been maybe accustomed to using, you may start having to branch out to vendors that are specifically set up for light duty equipment, heavy duty equipment, if you actually have that need and want to make that next step to go to electric or hybrids. some of the challenges, which we've all talked about already, and it's been said, but for Montpelier, it's cost. The cost for electric is about 2 times that of gas. So when you're trying to prioritize equipment and projects and all these competing demands, which we all deal with every day through every budget cycle, it's hard to make that leap when the cost is about twice that. So unless you have committed and you can adjust, either increase your revenues, or it's sometimes a little bit hard to then take that next step and actually make your purchase for either hybrid or electric. In Montpelier specifically, we have a few other challenges. We have very steep slopes, so our elevations vary by about 400 feet. And so a lot of things that we're hearing from our vendors for like street sweeping equipment is that, your production, your efficiencies are going to start to go down. The battery life is going to go down. It's not going to be as effective in your hill or steep slopes environments. The other challenges, which was already mentioned, is that, we have cold weather. And so that's going to impact the overall battery life of these units. In 2022, we were presented with an opportunity to purchase an electric street sweeper, which we were trying to obtain. But the issue is that we weren't able to act quick enough. So we had a vendor, we had a bid out, they contacted us, they said, we have an electric vehicle, would you like to purchase it? By the time that I met with finance, got approval, and went through the whole process, they had already sold the piece of equipment to another community. So if you are strongly looking at making these steps, you should have a good understanding with your finance team and your management team of, if you're presented with this opportunity and it's in the budget, what will it take in order to actually procure that and to get that? Because here we were actually going to make that purchase and move to our first fully electric street sweeper, but we missed the boat by not being able to obtain the funding and to actually give them a purchase order quickly enough. Because in Montpelier, for procurement, we have to go to city council for a purchase that size. And by the time that we even were moving, and we're talking, less than 1 week span by the time that they told us, and we're working through, getting a city council meeting that is outside of schedule so that we can have authorization to purchase. It had already been taken. Some of the other challenges that we have experienced here is that we signed up through our Sourcewell contracting to get in line for a Ford Lightning, and that was about 1.5 years ago, and we still haven't even heard back about where in line we are in that process. So that's just one other challenge. And then the other thing that I want to speak about is internally, there is a big concern with your mechanics, your fleet operational staff, about what it's going to do, what is it going to take for them to be able to maintain these. A lot of more electrical components that are needed. I mean, yes, there's batteries and less maintenance, but as we're also transitioning to the electric world, we're seeing that there are a lot more electrical components even inside of these vehicles, the backup cameras. So that is a concern that we have moving forward, is how are we going to be able to train our staff in order so that they can work on these pieces of equipment, or are we going to have to be asking, for third-party vendors to come in and to help us with that? So with that, I think I'm done, and I'll leave it over to Donna for questions.
Zach, actually, I'm going to make a connection right now between you and Alec. So Alec, you have to tell the vendors that they have to be able to provide training for the mechanics to be able to maintain these fleets. That's such a great point about advancing this and having people as powerful as AAA and in the corner of trying to help folks. And maybe you can get that car for them. You can call Ford, put a little word in. But I do think, though, that those are really great points about the challenges that local public works agencies are going to face when they try to advance these things. you get one approved and then you can't get it because it's, you missed the boat on the timing. I mean, that's going to be frustrating for folks that are trying to advance this and have gotten on board with trying to move it forward. So those are really great points. Okay, I'm going to see if the audience has any questions, burning questions, before I let our panelists have a last final word about what they're thinking. And then we give you a moment to fill out our really quick evaluation, but mostly I would really be interested in knowing what information you want to see on this topic moving forward, what further conversation, which I think some of the discussion today has given me a list of those, but I would be very interested in hearing from all the agencies we have on the call today about what's on your mind about this as you move forward. I will send out a follow-up because I think I'll send the helpful resources out. And also, Dave, if you don't mind, I'll send your presentation out because there's some really good information in there as folks are going to start to deal with these mandates. And Zach, we do have your link to your vision, so that'll be helpful to folks as they move forward. Does anyone have any questions? I know it's a lot of information that we covered today. I'm very thankful for everyone who's here. Here we go. So is Montpelier looking to apply for the CFI grant? And any news from VTrans on where the NEVI funds stand?
So one thing that we have been struggling is there is money out there, but our staffing doesn't have a lot of capability to be researching all these other opportunities. So my quick answer is no. But Samantha, I would like to touch base with you if you know more about those programs, because it is something that we need to start doing, is utilizing more grants and how to obtain this funding.
That's great. And then for Dave, which manufacturers of the blowers and lawnmowers did you find the best, if you don't mind?
No, that's okay. So we started out with Still, and we kept the push mowers and the handheld blowers from them. What we found is we demoed Husqvarna for the string trimmers. We had Still string trimmers and we swapped over. So what I would say, and we demoed Oregon, and there's a few others that are out there. I would say have the vendor bring them in, try them out and see what's best for your staff. So that's what we found. So we did change in midstream with the string trimmers, and we are looking at the Husqvarna backpack blowers right now.
Hey, Donna, I have a quick question too.
Sure.
We talked a little bit earlier about this sort of being a political hot potato, right? Moving to, this renewable energy and those sorts of things. And maybe Dave, maybe you could respond to this, or Zach, when you were going through the public hearing process, that, you have those who are very much in favor of moving in this direction, yet there are others saying, well, if we're using electricity, that electricity has to come from someplace, and there's still a carbon footprint in producing electricity and all that sort of thing. Did you have any of that kind of discussion as you were going through these public hearings? We know back in the 70s, electricity was really high, and that's why we went to things like gas and so forth. So any of that discussion happened during your hearings?
Yeah, we heard both arguments, why we needed to switch to electric, and do you know what electric will do? It still uses the same resources at the end of the day, but for the equipment, it was more about the noise, and that was a big factor that played into it. So that, and then when we, from our own staff standpoint, we looked at their health and well-being when they're using the equipment. So that, that helped us there. But yeah, all of those arguments came up when we were going through the public process.
Yeah, and I'm in a little bit of a different boat. In Montpelier, there's a pretty high demand for electric equipment. So the community has been pretty vocal about this is what they want. So not a lot of conversation about keeping gas or any of or that sort of stuff. It's mostly how do we get to electric and how do we get the funding that we need in order to meet our goals. So we really didn't have a lot of negative pushback on that side, because it's here, at least we have a wide widespread range for wanting electric vehicles and equipment.
Thanks, Zach. And just really quick before we wrap, and I encourage people to do the QR codes or the link to give us feedback. But Samantha had one more question. Has Lexington started to use the funding one for electrical upgrades for future EV fleets?
So not to date, and a lot of that part of it goes through our sustainability office. The towns, it's not out of public works, so we're working with our sustainability officer to see what those options are that we can take a look at.
And if you don't, do you all mind just one more minute? We do have some really good, a couple final quick questions, and then I'll let you all go. So for David, the penalties that will be collected, do they go to your program to purchase new equipment, or does it go into a community fund? That's a great question. Where
It
does the
is,
penalties go?
But in Lexington, all fees collected go back into the general fund.
Oh, that's a really good question, Merritt.
Yeah,
About
now
can you use
it's
those to build the
available in the
program?
general fund, you know, and we put our budget together, but we can't earmark fees to cover a specific program.
Oh, that is a good question though, Merritt. And then how many people are applying for this year's CFI grant? Does anyone know the answer to that question? I do not. We can find out oh, thanks, Sam. Samantha, good luck to everyone on this. Thank you. Okay, so I know we're over, but thank you so much for those last couple questions coming in. And thanks again for joining us. Have a wonderful summer, and we look forward to September session on grant writing so we can help you write grants for these funds that will fund your EV program. We'll tie it all together. Thank you all. Thank Alec and Celia and Dave and Zach for being here. Have a wonderful day. Really appreciate everyone being here today. Thanks. Great information.
Thank you.
And continue to celebrate Public Works Week. Yay.
Absolutely. Great work, everyone.